What's going on, guys? In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to get FMLA for anxiety, depression, or any other mental health issue. I know about this topic not just because of a ton of research I've done into it, but also because I've gone through the process myself. I know how scary and overwhelming it can seem, and that's why I want you to pay really close attention to this video, watch it to the end, because I'm going to be peppering in some tips and tricks, some pitfalls that I almost fell into that I don't want you to fall into, because I almost didn't get approved for my FMLA leave, and I don't want that to happen to you. Now, to make the process of applying for and receiving FMLA leave as simple as possible, I'm going to break it down for you in this video in 4 simple steps. The first step is going to be determining whether or not you as an employee are actually eligible for FMLA leave in the first place. The second is going to be to determine whether or not your condition actually qualifies you for FMLA leave. The third is going to be what to say to your employer to get that leave. And the fourth is going to be what to say to your doctor or your therapist to get the medical certification you need to be approved for your FMLA leave. Now, if you guys are new to this channel, don't worry, I'm not going to make you subscribe or anything like that, but I just want to point out, if you don't know me, I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. So do check the comments below just in case I got anything wrong, or in case the law changes, or in case there's a certain condition or circumstance that I didn't mention. Help each other out down there. Now, for those of you who clicked on this video just because you wanted some time off work and you have no idea what FMLA actually is, FMLA is the Family Medical Leave Act. It's a US labor law that's going to protect employees who need to take a little bit of time off work to either care for a family member or to take care of their own serious health condition or mental health issue. FMLA runs for a 12-week period over 12 months. So basically you have 12 weeks worth of call-out days over a 12-month span. This can be continuous, this could be intermittent, or this could be in a reduced schedule capacity. So your job is going to be protected, your health insurance is going to be maintained if you already are on employer health insurance, and your employer cannot fire you when you come back to work or retaliate in any way. Now, if you do this continuously, continuous FMLA is going to be like taking all your leave at once. So maybe you took 4 weeks off because you were feeling super stressed out, even up to 12 weeks off because you were just having some serious anxiety, serious depression, or something like that. Intermittent would be more if, for example, say you're having random panic attacks and there's some days where you just might need to call out of work, but then the next day you're fine. That's where intermittent is going to come in, and you can kind of call out on a need-to basis as determined by your therapist or your doctor. And then you have reduced schedule, which is just going to be obviously working in a lower reduced schedule capacity to help you take care of whatever family issue or health issue or mental health issue needs to be taken care of. FMLA is usually unpaid, but sometimes employers might have a policy in place where they use up your PTO days as you use FMLA, so it can be paid sometimes. You're just gonna have to talk to your employer to find out what their policy is. So diving into this process here, step number 1 is going to be to determine whether or not you actually qualify for FMLA. Obviously, you don't want to get this whole process started if you're just gonna get denied. So let's take a look at this. First off, you need to be working for an employer with at least 50 employees in a 75-mile radius. So if you're just working for a small mom and pop shop, you're probably not going to be eligible for this. You need to have worked for the employer for at least a year. That's 12 months total. Those months do not need to be consecutive. And you need to have worked a minimum of 1,250 hours over the last 12 months. That's going to be an average of about 25 hours per week. If you're a part-time employee, you may be eligible for FMLA as long as you hit that 1,250 hour threshold in the past year. Once you know whether or not you've hit those required minimums, you're going to want to take a look at your condition itself and see if your condition qualifies for FMLA. So if you, a spouse, or a child, or dealing with any kind of serious health issue or mental health issue, be that anxiety, depression, addiction, eating disorders, etc., you may be eligible for FMLA. You're going to want to take a look at these 4 circumstances that qualify for FMLA. They are serious health conditions, birth, adoption, foster care placement, and bonding with a child, military family leave, and mental health conditions. Now, when is a mental health condition considered serious enough to qualify for FMLA? Well, there are 2 main conditions. The first is if your mental health issue requires inpatient care. So if you're dealing with an addiction issue or an eating disorder and you're staying at a facility overnight, that definitely is going to qualify you for FMLA. Also, if you're dealing with something that requires continuous treatment. So if you need 4 days or more off work and you're going through therapy or on medication, and you just need a couple of days off, this is probably gonna qualify you right here. But also, I think a lot of people are gonna qualify who are watching this video due to any chronic issues. So if you're dealing with anxiety or depression on a chronic, regular basis, where maybe some days are worse than others, maybe one day you wake up and you're having panic attacks and you're just not ready to deal with your customer-facing role, or maybe you're dealing with depression one day and it's really hard for you to get out of bed, but you'll probably be fine tomorrow. But today, it's just not the day. This is probably gonna qualify you right here for FMLA, this chronic condition. As long as you're getting treatment at least 2 days out of the year, you should qualify here. At this point, you should have a pretty good idea of whether or not you would be approved for FMLA. So if you're ready to initiate the process with your employer, let's get started. It's a good idea to give your employer at least 30 days advance notice if you can. If you can't, just give them as much notice as possible, but 30 days is the common courtesy that's expected. Let your employer know that you need FMLA. They're gonna have 5 days to get back to you and let you know if you're eligible for FMLA. If you are, that's gonna start a 15-day timer during which you need to get them medical certification. So actually, I recommend doing that step first because that 15-day window can be difficult to work within, but more on that later. Once you get them the medical certification, they're gonna have another 5 days to get back to you and let you know whether or not your leave has been designated as FMLA, because it could be granted in a different capacity if it didn't necessarily qualify for FMLA. At this point, all that's left to do is follow your employer's procedure for calling out. Now, this may be the same as it always has been, or they might make it a little bit more complicated with a third party like Sedgwick, where you have to also go online and just basically check a day where it's like, okay, I'm calling out FMLA on this day. That's what I had to do, so you might have to do something like that as well. But the great news is, when you return from FMLA, you're still gonna have a job to go back to, and you're gonna have health insurance continuing throughout the whole process of all these call-outs, assuming you already had health insurance through that employer. The final step in the FMLA process is going to be to get the necessary medical certification from your therapist, your doctor, or another healthcare provider. This is gonna be paperwork provided either by your employer or downloaded directly from the Department of Labor's website, which basically is just gonna communicate to your employer, yes, my patient's claim for FMLA is legitimate. Here's how much time off I recommend they should be able to get each month or each week, etc. Bonus step. Here are some tips and tricks I highly recommend so that you don't make the same mistakes I made and so that you have the greatest chance possible of getting approved for the type of leave you need. From personal experience, my advice here is this. Think long and hard about what you want before you even talk to your doctor or your therapist about this leave. You know your needs better than anyone, and it's perfectly okay to communicate this to your doctor or your therapist rather than just leaving it to complete whim and chance and hoping that they guess what you need correctly. For example, do severe panic attacks cause you to call out randomly on random days throughout the month? Does depression make it hard for you to work a week or two per month? Are you going through something really rough right now and just need a few months off to get your head straight? Think about these things before speaking with your therapist. Now, I want to tell you guys a little bit about how I went through the process and how I got approved for FMLA, exactly what I said and did to get the leave I needed. So first things first, as a patient, you're also a customer. If you're gonna be spending, especially if you're not covered by insurance, it's gonna be a couple $100 possibly for this session. So make sure you're getting exactly what you need. Communicate it beforehand. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. I found a local therapist in my area and sent her office an email stating the facts. I said, hey, look, I've been going through something recently and I really think FMLA, being able to call out every now and then, would help take a ton of the stress off me and help me get better faster. I already initiated the process with my employer, not realizing it would start a 15-day window. So is that a time frame you can work within, or do I have to talk to somebody else? The therapist told me she could book with me right away and start the paperwork process immediately. So I said, okay, sounds good. Let's get something booked a couple of days from now. I told the therapist exactly what I needed. I didn't leave anything to guesswork. I said, listen, something traumatic happened in my life recently and I've started having panic attacks again. Just going through a lot of stress right now, and what would really help me is just the ability to call out every now and then without losing my job. I said, I probably won't even need it. It's just something that knowing it's there will give me peace of mind. My therapist was more than happy to help with this process and thoroughly filled out the paperwork exactly as needed, so I got intermittent leave approved for FMLA and was able to call out over a 6-month period, twice per month for 1 week at a time. After that 6-month period, I had the option to see the therapist again and renew the FMLA, but I didn't need to do so. Finally, guys, I want to talk about what happens if you are not qualified for FMLA. So what if an employee is not eligible for FMLA? What do we do? Well, you still have a couple of other options at your disposal. We have unpaid time off, and vacation time. Those are pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to go into those. Also, people wonder, what's stress leave? Can I get stress leave from work? Stress leave is really just a sick day, you're taking sick leave, but the employer is honoring mental health as a sick leave eligible reason to call in. But then we finally have disability. So what's the difference between disability versus FMLA? Disability is going to offer you basically no job protection. There's no guarantee that you're going to have a job to go back to. Whereas with FMLA, your employer is going to have to give you either the same job or a basically exactly comparable job. They can't fire you for taking FMLA. If you're not eligible for FMLA, disability might be a good way to get some time off work, sometimes even while being paid if there's a certain employer policy or insurance policy in place there. But just keep in mind, it doesn't offer the same protections that FMLA does. If you've gone through the FMLA process yourself or have any tips or tricks or questions about specific conditions or eligibility requirements that I didn't dive into enough, feel free to comment below and help each other out. I know this stuff can get really complicated really quickly, and things also change over time, so hit that comment section up. Also, if this video was helpful for you, I want to ask you to consider hitting the like button, maybe even the subscribe button if you want to see more of me, because this actually helps me reach a lot more people, and I know other people are probably dealing with similar issues as yourself. So that's all I got for today, guys. Thank you so much for sticking to the end. I will catch you guys next time.